We begin, as always, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Whiplash. Two whiplash-inducing stories to lead off today's montage. We'll start with this. Yesterday, Joe Biden's staff tweeted, "Since I took office, our economy has created 7.9 million jobs and unemployment has dropped to 3.6%. It's historic. Our economy has gone from being on the mend to being on the move." This morning, it was announced the U.S. economy actually shrank by 1.4% in the first quarter of this year, its worst pace in 2 years. Meanwhile, China reported recently, if you can trust them, their economy grew by nearly 5% in the first quarter of this year. Also, the Russian ruble has hit a 6-month high against the dollar and a 2-year high against the euro, meaning Joe Biden and the West's sanctions regime against Putin has abjectly failed. The other whiplash-inducing story is this. Anthony Fauci 2 days ago said,
"We are certainly right now in this country out of the pandemic phase." Are we out of the pandemic phase in this country? We are.
Yesterday, he told the Associated Press and the Washington Post, quote, "We are in a different moment of the pandemic. By no means does that mean that the pandemic is over. The world is still in a pandemic." In other news, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, made this announcement after being asked by a congresswoman about so-called foreign disinformation in elections and global events.
Our Undersecretary for Policy, Rob Silvers, is co-chair with our Principal Deputy General Counsel, Jennifer Daskal, in leading a just recently constituted misinformation, disinformation governance board.
Yes, a real-life ministry of truth is being created before our very eyes. In completely unrelated news, actress Megan Fox was interviewed by the British digital version of Glamour magazine. She talked about her marriage to rock star Machine Gun Kelly.
I guess to drink each other's blood might mislead people, or like people are imagining us with like goblets and we're like Game of Thrones drinking each other's blood. It's just a few drops. But yes, we do consume each other's blood on occasion for ritual purposes only. It is used for a reason, and it is controlled where it's like, let's shed a few drops of blood and each drink it. He's much more haphazard and hectic and chaotic, where he's willing to just like cut his chest open with broken glass and be like, take my soul. Let me bleed on you. It doesn't not happen, let me tell you. Maybe not exactly like that, but a version of that has happened many times.
Speaking of blood-sucking ghouls, here's what Joe Biden thinks about your children when addressing a gathering of teachers.
They're all our children. And the reason you're the teachers of the year is because you recognize that. They're not somebody else's children. They're like yours when they're in the classroom.
Anyway, here's Nikolai Carpathia's thoughts on the last few stories.
How terribly sad. Terribly sad.
Terribly sad.
Terribly sad.
Terribly sad.
Terribly sad.
A New Zealand court has found Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern violated the constitutional rights of thousands of New Zealanders by implementing a lottery system during lockdowns to secure spots in so-called quarantine hotels for nationals abroad waiting to get back home. New Zealand in recent months, though, has abandoned its zero-COVID approach to the pandemic. U.S. officials say Russian and Chinese hackers were among foreigners who stole between $87 and $400 billion worth of federal COVID unemployment benefits over the last couple of years. Hackers used stolen bank, credit card, and tax information of Americans to pull off the massive fraud. And finally, conservative comedian and pundit Alex Stein announced last night he's joining Blaze TV. Here's his most recent appearance at the Allen, Texas City Council meeting.
My name is Primetime Stein. I'd like to keep my address private for personal reasons. I work at a popular Chili's because I was recently sexually assaulted within the metaverse. And I recently ordered a device from China that hooked up to my, there's some children in the room, so we have to be very careful of the words I use, but hooked up to some orifices of mine. And it was actually, they say on the manual, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Dave, but it's actually indistinguishable from actual physical intercourse. And I'll be honest, I was having a good time until things got wildly insane. Other people's avatars were starting to take advantage of my avatar, and I felt helpless. I felt out of control. And we need to tell Mark Zuckerberg how I was sexually assaulted within the metaverse, Dave. I really need your help and your attention.
Your time
I
has
appreciate you.
expired.
Thank you.
And that's what happened while we were away.